everyone. I'm Rahul Rekhi. I'm a partner with KPMG. And it's a pleasure to be here moderating this esteemed panel. So I think that was a good keynote, and thanks for that. As we move on, everyone knows that the potential of 5G is immense, and with major telecom companies now looking at rolling 5G, commercially rolling 5G across India, the kind of use cases enterprises are looking at are multiple, spanning across AI, robotics, IoT, and so on. There are benefits with respect to enhanced mobile broadband, ultra-reliable low-latency communication, obviously helping into use cases with respect to smart cities, smart homes, connected enterprises, industrial automation, and many more. This provides a unique opportunity to telcos as well as technos to come together and develop use cases, not only for a particular industry, but also across industries. So let us now take this opportunity to understand a bit more on how 5G can accelerate the digital transformation of companies. I will request my panelists to start with a brief introduction and also simultaneously talk on a very interesting topic on digital transformation initiatives being taken by companies to integrate their front, back, and mid offices. What are the key considerations which enterprises should ensure to undertake that this integration is successful using digital transformation? So may I go one after the other and request fellow panelists to take this up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mahalingam. I represent a company called Netcon. We specialize in system integration. We set up networks for large factories, airports, and smart cities, and we enable implementation of many use cases for the customers. So today we are talking about 5G, how 5G can accelerate the digital transformation. Thanks to the broadband, today broadband and 4G, the cellular connectivities, smartphones, today the businesses who are customer focused, like businesses like retail, hospitality, travel, they've been disrupted heavily by digital transformation because of the connectivity. And even in manufacturing companies, the customer-focused business operations like their CRM or their partner portal, the partner management, these operations have been, there has been significant digital transformation adoption. However, their back-end functions, like if you take a factory, the production process or the mining operations, or several other use cases are there which are not, which has not been, the digital transformation has not been adopted in such applications. The primary reason for this is lack of connectivity. See, today you have connectivity option. If you take a factory, we have connectivity options like you have wired connection or a Wi-Fi connection. Today, these connectivity options are not very much suitable for some of these high bandwidth intensive, low latency applications like your video-based sensors, even robots, and few other applications. Few other use cases cannot be implemented effectively on the current connectivity methods. So 5G provides the solution for all this. So 5G provides high-speed connectivity, high-speed, low latency, and reliable connectivity, which can enable multiple use cases in these industries, especially the manufacturing. See, I do believe that 5G is the only enabler at present, as the technologies, considering the technologies available today. 5G is the only enabler that can provide, that can make a factory into a complete smart digital factory. And it can solve all the connectivity needs of the factory. So I do believe that adoption of 5G in industries in especially factories, manufacturing, and similar industries will accelerate the digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, and pleasure to be here. I'm Magnus Ewerbring from Ericsson. So, driving digitalization in enterprises is, I think, a great task and has lots of potential going forward. Many things to consider, but also lots of value to derive from it. At Ericsson, we started in this area in 2015 when our research group started a program called 5G for Industries. We went out with key companies and not with the incentive to educate them on 5G primarily, of course we did that, but primarily to understand how do they operate their workshop today and what can we gain by step-by-step onboarding cases to wireless domain. And bear in mind then the factories are there, so you don't do a swap of the factory. You start step-by-step to onboard some cases. Let me give you an example. In one of our own factories, we have pneumatic screwdrivers. We have over 1,000 of them. And by simply putting on a sensor, so we could measure how much the device is being used, we could then proactively say, when should we quickly change this to a new unit and proactively do a touch-up. So instead of having the screwdriver breaking down and have a stop in the production flow and then at a higher cost repair it, we proactively just did a touch of it. And since we could plan that, the interruption was not important, right? There was no interruption to speak of. Now, very quickly, when the people in the factory saw this, there was no way going back. But once we had that, the engineers started to think, how about if we also log what torque is being used when they apply it, the torque to one particular bolt? And so they did that. And all of a sudden, they know exactly what torque is being used for every bolt in that product. And now they know that it's designed according to the specifications. And all of a sudden, the product quality goes up. And before you know it, you derived a completely different value from where you started with. And how do you get to this? By being data-driven, collect more data. And this you can do with the wireless system. You can be flexible where you put your sensors. You can be flexible how much data you bring in. And you can have a factory that is reconfigurable without having the cost to redraw or rewire your wires. So much more opportunities becoming data-driven, being agile and flexible in your, in this case, factory as you digitalize.
Hi, good afternoon. Balram from Sterlite Technologies. We are the leading fiber manufacturer in the country. We are also into networking as well as in a services domain, rolling out certain networks primarily for telcos as well as for private enterprises. My understanding about, actually this is the entire 5G needs are emerging from enterprise segments, or primarily from digital transformation journey which every enterprise is trying to drive. Digital transformation is a very big industry and which is actually relying on underlying infrastructure which will be provided by 5G. And digital transformation is globally is roughly around a 2 trillion market. But in this entire 2 trillion market, the execution of that entire digital transformation journey will be dependent on infrastructure which will be delivered through 5G. Just to add or give you, in this entire industry, there are many use cases which are getting discussed across the industry. 100 plus use cases which are under development, but the top 3 or top 4 which will be driving innovation in next couple of years is primarily around how the smart manufacturing is coming into a play, which will enable on a real-time basis in terms of capturing information and driving efficiencies into their real-time production environment. There will be a use case which is primarily driven by logistics. So logistics supply chain is going to be one of the leading adopter of this entire technology going forward. My fellow colleagues have already spoken about the entire infrastructure which will be required by in terms of digitizing the entire process innovation which is involved in any workforce or a workload management which is primarily towards people or human involved in the entire process, so that we can start digitizing the practice which will enable or which will reduce or bring the efficiency or reduce the operational cost for the organization. So these are some of the innovations which will drive the adoption of 5G primarily in the country as well as across the world. While we were trying to digitize this entire infrastructure, I just want to give you an example. In a present environment, the existing commercial networks or existing networks, we are not able to resolve the low latency or a zero latency issues which is required in a manufacturing process, which is happening in our factory alone. Capturing information from different sensors involved in the entire manufacturing process on a real-time basis, and passing that information which enables us taking some of our decisions and not losing our production. Even if we lose a 2 or 3 days of a production in a year, it's a huge loss to the entire industry. We will, with 5G coming in, with the private network coming in, it will give a lot of boost to the entire industry.
Thank you. My name's Pete Weimann. I'm with HFCL. My background is HFCL is a manufacturer of optical fiber and cable, and we have an increasing and growing business in communication solutions, including Wi-Fi and 5G. My background's optical fiber and cable. I am no expert on 5G. I am proud to say that I have many colleagues at HFCL, including here at IMC, who are experts on it. But I do have a couple things that I can bring to the table here. One is I've spent a quarter of a century in manufacturing. You've heard from some of the other panelists some of the benefits we expect to see from 5G. The issue that we run into in manufacturing is we can't put sensors everywhere with the current bandwidth we have. Wi-Fi doesn't have the distance. It's too many wires to run. You can start to collect data. You know, in our processes right now, we get the finished product and we figure out that what happened, but we don't know how we got there. And ubiquitous sensors, ubiquitous IoT can help us understand how we got there. Find the torque on that bolt. Find exactly, you know, rather than saying the controls are supposed to be telling a particular machine what to do, is it actually doing it? Well, instead of figuring it out from the conclusion, the product that you made, you can figure it out in real time. Other benefits of 5G in manufacturing will include increased sustainability, better measurement of energy usage, and also one thing that I think people are just starting to take advantage of is using the ultra-low latency to do proximity sensing and increase safety in the manufacturing process. As we add more automation, being able to tell if that machine is too near a person will be a new use case for 5G that will evolve. For the overall topic of digital transformation, this is something that's already begun throughout the industry. It's a journey that most companies have been on. And I think the most important thing to remember about it is it's a tool. It's not what your company does. It's a tool to help your company do what it does better. And when applying that tool, you know, it's not a magic incantation to make your business better. Like anything, you need to identify where you want to go, identify the gaps between where you are and that end state, and most importantly, dedicate the right resources to make sure that you can get there quickly. You know, we'll have a lot more data, but it doesn't change the business fundamentals of good planning and good goals and figuring out where you want to go and remembering it's a powerful tool, but just a tool. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, my name is Prateek. I'm representing Jio. To us, digital transformation is not one technology, right? Connectivity, including 5G, yes, but so is cloud, IoT, robotics, AI, big data, and so on. There are huge number of technologies, and when an enterprise is trying to transform themselves, make themselves relevant in the new world, they are struggling to figure out what do they do and how do they use these technologies to create value for themselves and for their customers. To us, I think three things are required for an organization to do a successful digital transformation. One starts with ownership. Who's driving the digital transformation agenda? If it's not the CEO, if it's not the board, chances are that that transformation journey will not be successful. So I think the first point of ownership is most paramount in doing this transformation. Second, what is the organization that is supporting it? I've seen two kinds of companies. Companies which create a small innovation lab, get a chief digital officer, and say, go and transform the organization. And that this team works in isolation of the rest of the organization. The other model is where you integrate digital as part of every department, because every department is transforming. And we've seen that the companies that adopt the latter model of integrating digital and projects, programs in each department rather than running it in isolation have succeeded, have done better than the ones who have created a isolated unit and called it a digital innovations hub or what have you. The third, I think, as Peter said, is a journey. It's a marathon. But marathon can't be run like a marathon. It has to be run like sprints. So you have to pick quick wins, celebrate, and because that gives an immense amount of benefit both to the organization as well as to the people driving it. So it's very important that you break that marathon into small sprints, celebrate success, and that energizes the whole organization to drive bigger, longer agendas. So that to us, it's organization, ownership, and execution, and that will help an organization transform themselves digitally.
Hi, I'm Rochak Kapur. I'm representing Vodafone Idea. It's always tough when 5 people ahead of you and all experts have answered the same question. And it exhausts almost everything else. So I'll think on my feet and talk based on my experience of running digital transformation initiatives within my organization, as well as dealing or managing them with our customers. Prateek talked about 3. I'll add 2 more. Okay. The first one, absolutely on the spot, what Prateek said. It has to come from the top. In a recent survey, or as our Ready for Next program that we ran for MSMEs, more than 15,000 MSMEs have responded to the survey. More than 90% of the MSMEs, which have been rated as high on digital and successful, they've almost all of them stated that they have been successful because the initiative has been run by the top. It has been owned by the top. So absolutely on the spot, that is the first thing. Not only it has to be run from the top, the goals and objectives have to be absolutely clear. So that's number 1. Number 2, absolutely aligned with what Prateek said, the organization and the operations. Just adding that part to it. By organization, it is the people, the structure, the skills. By operations, all of us, our organizations have legacy silos. That needs to be absolutely taken care of, right? On alignment with the objectives, and these silos need to be broken. Different ways of working needs to happen, and that can only happen from the top. The third, any transformation initiative requires an ecosystem of partners that the organization needs to collaborate with. So the selection of these ecosystems of partners is another important imperative. The fourth one that I think is also extremely important here is the business KPIs that the organization measures. Today, we all measure, if I'm a telco, I measure specific KPIs, right? My network performance, okay, what is my speed, what is my throughput, uplink, downlink, error rates, all that stuff. The digital transformation initiatives will require a reassessment of what are the business KPIs you're measuring and driving. That's a very important rethink required. And finally, you have to be open to a multi-vendor environment. It aligns along with the ecosystem of partners, but extremely important, one partner, one vendor cannot do everything, right? So these 5 elements, I think, are the core things, and this is what we have practiced in Vodafone Idea as well, as we have run some of the transformation initiatives bit by bit, like Prateek said, divide them, right? So we have looked at internal transformation and we have looked at external transformation, which is facing towards the customers, right? And that is the division and clarity we had when we undertook these initiatives. It's a journey which we divided into different bits and pieces, and each element as it happened, we are celebrating that within the organization. With that, I'll hand over to Alok, and I think he has an even tougher job than me now, having covered almost quite a few aspects. Let's see what comes from him.
Yeah, thanks for the acknowledgement, Rochak. So hi, my name is Alok. I'm part of Airtel. When we talk of digital transformation, everybody talks about it. I think for anybody, and this is enterprise, telcos, or anybody, A, it's a very long journey, typically going for years. And B, it cuts across the entire organization. To my mind, the success parameter for any such journey is two, which is more important than the others. One, we constantly answer the question, what does it solve for? Are we trying to reach to more customers? Is it improving my customers' touch point experience, etc., etc.? So as long as we keep this introspection real all the time, it solves a lot of problems, because then you're able to prioritize out of the ocean called digital transformation. That's one. B, with the evolving ecosystem, I think it is a lot of players, a lot of ecosystem is involved, and hence the question of what do you do on your own and where you sort of partner on others' innovation to deliver something. I think these are the two most important questions in my mind for digital transformation. 5G is a part of it. We've all talked about it. It obviously unlocks a lot many new things, a lot many use cases, because it has higher bandwidth, lower latency, ABCD, and all of that. Nobody really knows what works eventually. And again, I think a lot of collaboration, a lot of experiment needs to be done, again on those two lines, that what real problem can one or the other use case solve, and B, can it create that impact, and can it align to the KPIs that I think Prateek and Rochak also talked about. So that's what I think it is for me.
Yeah, I think very good thoughts. And though Rochak was saying that it's a difficult task, both Rochak and Alok were able to take it up very well. So maybe, Rochak, I'll come back to you again. Private versus public networks. What do you think organizations will go in for, or is there a combination which people will look at?
I don't think that is a debate at all in my mind, because in the end, it is what an enterprise wants to do, wants to accomplish out of it, that will define what they need. Both the options are available. Both will work, but they'll work to solve a particular problem. So the enterprise needs to be very clear, what are they trying to solve, and based on that, the answer will emerge.
Okay. Prateek, how do you think NAS helps enterprises in their digital journey?
I think it's a question similar to private versus public. I think enterprises, and as Rochak said, they're trying to solve a problem. They're not trying to become a telecom operator, right? And that problem needs to be solved for, and it needs to get delivered by somebody who knows how to run a network. I think we are seeing in this digital transformation journey, people are sticking more and more to the core. We heard about partnerships, decide where to draw a line and where to get partners. This is in the same continuum. I think the enterprises will more than welcome somebody else running that network for them, while they derive the benefits that accrue, be it with a private, public, or hybrid network. And I think that's where network as a service is there. Companies will stick more to their core. If they're in FMCG, if they're in logistics, that's what they want to do. They want to reap the benefits that accrue with 5G, and that's what they will lean on to experts to get that service. So it's actually, if anybody in this country decides to do a network and run themselves as enterprise, it's a failure of this panel and failure of all companies who are in this space, that the enterprises have to resort to that.
I think let's look at how the future unfolds. Mahalingam, one point. Do you think CSPs are increasing their efforts to meet the current requirements, network requirements, from where you look at it, before I go back to that?
See, today, the current network requirements, definitely it has changed. For multiple use cases, for example, the use cases are becoming much complex and requires more bandwidth, it requires more reliability. For example, if you take a factory, today factory, you have multiple networks in a factory. So you have a SCADA network which connects multiple machines together, or it automates the industry. And also you have an enterprise network which collects data from the factory floor and take it to the enterprise internet. And I mean, you have multiple networks. So enterprises want one unified network that meets every needs. And I think 5G is one such option for them. See, 5G supports, for example, network function virtualization, network slicing, and other functions, which which enables multiple use cases, including industrial automation or connecting machines together, or low latency applications, high reliable applications can be realized using 5G networks. So I do not know where the cloud service provider is coming into picture here. CSP, you mean cloud service? Okay, the telecom service providers, yeah. So the telecom service providers, definitely they will, they should implement or they should look at the changing requirements of the enterprises. And that is where I do believe that the private networks, the private 5G networks come into play, where the network within a factory are designed and implemented to suit multiple applications, whereas the outdoor applications, like your 4G or 5G networks on the for connecting your mobile devices, that are designed in a different way. So I think the telecom service providers are looking into both providing a public network which is suitable for the changing the demands of the different use cases, and also they are looking at the private network deployment which meets the different use cases for the enterprises.
Thank you, thanks. Any viewpoint from you, Prateek, Rochak, on this?
I agree with what Maha has said. Enterprise A versus Enterprise B, and within Enterprise A itself, location 1 versus location 2. What gets deployed will depend on what that particular use case or the requirements are. For example, one premise may have a requirement of a security and surveillance, requiring high definition cameras, AI analytics and everything, and the requirement to have the data resident within the enterprise premises. That's a use case for a private network, provided it meets the ROI requirements. Otherwise, some other solution needs to be found. In the end, everything has to make commercial sense for an enterprise. Another location, maybe same enterprise or different enterprise. There's nothing which is so time sensitive. The data can go all the way to the cloud or to a private cloud. Decisions can happen there, can come back. No impact on resilience, no impact on the applications. It's no sensitivity to time. It's not very bandwidth or speed throughput intensive. It could be run on a public network as well, right? So again, like I said initially, it's not one or the other. It is what I need and what I need to solve, right? And second, most important, is it a commercial viable way of solving it? That needs to be assessed by the enterprise.
That's good. I think I'll request now Magnus, Peter and Balram to take 1 minute each to bring out how 5G is going to enable or aid emerging technologies like AI, MI, IoT. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. Fundamental parts of 5G, right? If we take the IoT part first, we now have different categories of IoT. We have broadband, we have massive IoT, we have the short delay, the URLLC, we have time-critical IoT, supporting time-sensitive networks as examples, right? So that community of different categories of IoT devices are there specifically to cater for different needs in enterprises. And all categories, I argue, if you take a factory, will be there depending on what kind of problem they're going to support. Then you mentioned AI, machine learning, and so forth. It's absolutely part of it. It's part of the system itself. It's part of how the systems are being managed and controlled. We talk now about going forward about intent-driven systems where the operator declares an intent and this system shall automatically adapt to the parameter settings needed to fulfill that intent. That's a technology area that's emerging, but there will be a long continuation here with these technology factors coming about more and more. Absolutely.
So I think just to add, the important factor for us is what we are trying to solve and what is a problem statement for these enterprises. Primarily, is this a problem statement related to productivity loss, which we are trying to solve, or is that a problem related to cost structure or operation efficiencies, or are we trying to solve a problem related to reliability? All those factors will define what path all these enterprises are going to take. And definitely all these use cases around be it IoT or be it AI, ML is important, because ultimately all these use cases are actually trying to bring digitization or automation in some or the other form in terms of improving or bringing efficiency into the existing enterprises. As we speak, I think the largest problem which as an industry which we have to solve, roughly 27 billion odd devices are already connected on the internet. How we are going to solve the problem related to reliability, how we are going to solve problem related to security, or how we are going to solve the problem related to operation efficiency will drive the adoption of 5G going forward.
I largely agree with what both Magnus and Balram have to say, and there's another part of the answer, which is, I don't know, they don't know either. We need the apps, we need the evolution, we need to ask the users what data will be most useful to them. Just preventative maintenance on a screwdriver becoming a major benefit. I think part of it is, yes, you need to have the support from the top down for digital transformation, but you also need to talk to the user base, the people on the ground in your enterprise, and say, what don't you have right now that you need? And then work with the analytics platforms, work with the AI to add that. There's a lot of interest in VR and AR for things like maintenance and virtual visiting and that kind of stuff. But is it a toy, or does it add value to the person who has to solve the problem on the front line?
Great. I think one last question to Alok. How do you think telcos will vary their products and services to meet the current need, the portfolio of the product services?
Okay, so I think three parts, the way I think about it is, I think one part is the core connectivity part, which enables everything else. As we all know, there's no perfect North Star for that. This is an evolving space. There are places where it is bad. There are places where it's brilliant. And I think this is an evolving thing, which is obviously fueled by a lot of expansion, fiber, investment, spectrum, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that whole evolution of the network from one to the other will continue to happen. I think there are two other parts which is there, and I think Prateek also talked about it a bit. One part is some of these solutions for a customer or for enterprises is typically becoming a problem solver. So he needs A, B, C things, network being one of those things to solve a problem. He doesn't really care, and he doesn't want to deal with the difficult ecosystem of dealing with A plus B plus C. And therefore, he wants somebody to own this and offer him as a simple service consumable, which I think in the previous one, we also talked about network as a service. That's, I think, that other important part. And the last part, I feel, which needs to change maybe a bit more, where we need to do a lot more, what we have not done is, that eventually it's an experience that we are trying to create. I don't think any one person can create that experience all on its own, especially when we talk about B2B and enterprises. And hence, wireline, broadband, 5G, etc., is a combination not only from one person but in partnership with others that needs to come together to create that experience and that deliverable. I think these are the three things which I feel we need to do more.
If you look at the ICT adoption in India, it's 1.3% of the GDP compared to China at 2.4, US at 4.3. And is that a demand problem or a supply problem? To us, it's very clear it's not a demand problem. Ability to spend exists. Service providers have not done a good job of supplying. And what do I mean by supplying? I think we're all culprits here of using acronyms, which do not actually mean anything to the end customer. We do not speak the customer language. And as a result, for example, if you say CRM, think of that real estate broker who's got 7 employees. He has no clue what CRM means. So you've already lost him in your first conversation. But if you tell him that, this allows you to keep your customer records at one place so that when the leave and license agreement is coming up for renewal, you will get a reminder. I think he understands that. So I think more than the product portfolio, it's also how we package it. The adoption is 1.3% and not 2.6 because we've not done a good job. So I think it's incumbent on us to not just reimagine what products and services, but reimagine how it's sold.
I think very interesting thoughts. We need to be working together and we need to be working and talking the language of customers. And at the same time, thinking of new use cases, obviously because now the technology will support many more of them. So let us see what the future has for us. But everyone agrees that 5G is going to transform enterprises and the adoption hopefully increases significantly beyond that 1.3%. So I think thank you everyone for being a part of this panel and look forward to interact with you.